All right, hello everybody. So for today's talk, we are going to talk about ways to prevent diabetes. Specifically, talking about ways to prevent type 2 diabetes or insulin-resistant diabetes. So type 2 diabetes is incredibly prevalent. Somewhere between 90 to 95% of all people who are diagnosed with diabetes, it's type 2. The reason for that is that type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune condition. So it's typically brought on in childhood, what they used to call juvenile onset diabetes. They used to call type 2 diabetes adult onset diabetes because it occurred later in life due to lifestyle, but since so many children sadly are developing this now, they can't call it adult onset, so now they just call it type 2. So type 2 diabetes takes years to develop because it is something that is a result of our diet and our lifestyle. So the good news is if 90 to 95% of people with type 2 are developing the type 2 diabetes, it can be almost completely prevented or tremendously reduced by changing diet and lifestyle. So it's very much in our control. Our body weight, the foods and the nutrients we take in, our physical activity and stress are the four main components to what develops type 2 diabetes over time. So if we can get a handle on those four areas, everything else clears itself up. So weight. Probably body weight is the #1 most important connection or factor with diabetes prevention. When we are overweight, we have a 7-time increased risk of developing type 2 diabetes. So very, very, very important is to get a good healthy weight. If we enter the realm of obesity, we have somewhere between 20 to 40 times the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. So huge jump. And as more and more people are becoming highly overweight or obese, we're going to just continue to see more and more people developing type 2 diabetes. So our diet and our physical activity, which are the two main things that determine our weight, are our best preventative measures for keeping type 2 diabetes from developing. So, diet. The biggest culprits, the biggest things that increase our weight and decrease our sensitivity to insulin, which leads to that blood sugar going high, processed food. Processed food is lacking in fiber, lacking in nutrients. It's full of refined fat and oil and other inflammatory factors. And they're also going to be too high in sugar. You would never cook with the amount of sugar at home as the sugar that is put in our beverages, the sugar that's put in our sauces, the sugar that's put in our chips and our crackers and our baked goods. Processed food, food where someone else did the cooking for you, #1 most important thing. The more you get that out, everything else is just to help add on to that. That is the most powerful thing we can do. Too much meat and animal-based foods. Partly because if we eat a lot of meat, a lot of dairy, a lot of cheese, a lot of eggs, things like that, we don't have as much room for fruits and veggies and healthier food because we're full of all these other foods. So they take up a lot of space. The other thing is that animal-based protein is very high in fat. And high levels of fat in the diet also screw up our body's ability to manage insulin. So if we want to reverse this, high fiber foods, foods that haven't been processed, whole grains, whole fruits, whole vegetables, beans and legumes and lentils, whole nuts and seeds, very, very healing. They are rich in fiber, they are rich in vitamins and antioxidants and minerals, and they are very deficient, if you will, in processed oil, processed sugar, processed fat. They're lacking all the things we want them to be lacking in. And so going with beverages that have little to no added sugar is a huge thing. We drink a lot of sugar throughout the day in the form of our beverages, so if we could just even change that, that would help fantastically. So this is nutrient density. Nutrient density is looking at how much of a particular nutrient there is per pound of a food. So when we talk about healthy weight, we really want to look at the nutrient or the calorie density of foods. So this chart was developed by a great dietitian, Jeff Novick, to try to show people what foods to eat the most of, what foods to limit, and what foods to really try to limit or avoid. So vegetables, fruits, unprocessed, complex carbohydrates, whole grains, starchy vegetables, things like that, beans and legumes. What they have found is that if you base your diet on these foods, it doesn't mean that it has to be the only food you eat, but you're really getting a good 70–80% or more of your diet from these foods, everything else takes care of itself. Everything else becomes easier. You're taking in less calories, you're feeling full, you're getting tons of nutrients, tons of fiber. Base your diet on these foods: legumes, unprocessed complex carbs, fruits and vegetables. These foods, those 4 categories, you don't have to limit at all. Eat as much fruit, as much vegetable, as much complex carbohydrate, as many beans, lentils as you want. I mean as much as you want. You could never overeat on these foods. They have so much water and so much fiber. They're so filling, you'd be stuffed to the gills before you could start to enter the realm of overeating on them. So really focus on those foods. Fatty protein, this is things like basically animal food. Poultry, pork, eggs, dairy, beef, fish, shellfish, things like this. They're sort of in the middle. It doesn't mean that you cannot eat them, but we can't base our diets on them. They're too full of calories, they're too full of fat. So these need to be smaller. So instead of eating a chicken breast with a little rice and a little veggie, make a great big rice vegetable stir fry, or a great big pot of rice, bean, veggie soup. And there's a little chicken mixed into it, a little chicken cooked with the veggies, a little ground chicken mixed in with the soup. Making tiny adjustments. Rather than having scrambled eggs where it's 4 eggs with some spinach, scramble spinach and onion and garlic and bell pepper and cherry tomato and basil with 1 egg cracked into it. Tiny little adjustments, just making the emphasis more down here solves everything. Processed carbohydrates, junk food, processed food. Really, really bad. There's no such thing as a healthy processed food. So the more we can eliminate, the better. Nuts, seeds, oil, these are very high in calorie, which makes them easier to overeat on. Does this mean that I can't ever eat a nut or a teaspoon of olive oil again? Absolutely not. But we can't base our diet down here. So if you coat the bottom of your pan with olive oil before you cook your veggies, try coating the bottom of your pan with vegetable stock or white wine or apple juice before you cook your veggies, and then drizzle a little olive oil on at the end. Don't make a snack out of a giant bag of walnuts. Make a snack out of apples and bananas and pears and a little palm full of walnuts. Again, just shifting the proportion. This takes care of the calorie issue, which helps with weight, and this helps to fill our body with fiber and other necessary nutrients, which helps with the insulin sensitivity as well. Movement. Whatever kind of movement you like, do that. It could just be walking in place, stretching. It doesn't have to be exercise. It doesn't have to be crazy CrossFit insanity. It doesn't have to be anything like that. Just to move the body makes the muscles engage and gets everything burning energy. Everything needs to use sugar now, so it pulls sugar out of the blood. Movement. Park further away, take the stairs, all these common little cliche things, but they really are important and they really add up. Every hour or so, if you do a lot of sitting at work or sitting at home, try to get up, even if it's just for a few minutes. Walk around your office, walk around the house, do some stretches at your desk. Anything that gets the body in movement. Try not to sit for more than 45 minutes to an hour at a time. It will do wonders. Movement, the reason I like the term movement, it should be enjoyable. You're going with the way your body's designed. You can do it anywhere at any time. You don't have to pay someone to teach you how to move your body. And you can start right now. You can, while you're watching this, I don't know, walk in place or do something to get the body moving. Things like exercise. Not that the exercise isn't important, but typically people don't love exercise. It has this dreaded thing about it. I have to join a gym. I have to pay a personal trainer. I have to drive to a class. I feel sore and pain the next day. So don't worry about that right now. Just start to get the body in motion. And then finally, stress. Stress wreaks havoc on the body. It makes all these nasty hormones and other chemicals in our body go up. It causes our sensitivity to other hormones, to insulin, to go down. So managing stress, whether it's through breathing, whether it's through meditation, whether it's through a spiritual practice, whether it's just taking a walk, watching something funny, anything that helps you to manage your stress heals. It is just as potent medicine in the body as food and exercise. So you've got to work on the stress too. So putting this all together, lots of whole fiber-rich foods. As many fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, and lentils as you can possibly stand. Get them in. Start to make an effort to get processed food out. It doesn't matter how healthy it tries to tell you it is, it isn't. There's no such thing as a healthy product. Just more you can take it out, the better. Watch out for foods that are rich and dense in calories, like animal foods, nuts, seeds, oils. Make them a smaller portion of your diet. You don't have to throw them away, but make them a smaller portion. Get that wonderful body in motion in whatever way you can keep it moving, and start to work on your stress management in whatever way is realistic and easy for you to do at this time. As always, never hesitate to reach out if you have any questions about what we discussed today. I hope you found this information helpful, and have a wonderful day and be well.